If you are studying comedy as a literary genre, whether for your A-level or other qualification in literature, then you need to know this information, because this information will help you contextualize and understand that comedy follows the same formula, whether it's a literary form of comedy written by writers centuries ago or a modern prank video. In this video, I'm going to be referring to a couple of modern pranks, which you can find on YouTube relatively easily, as well as stag and hen do's, as examples of the comedic tradition. In a nutshell, of course, comedy is all about breaking away from normality and creating entertainment in the process, often through deception, rocking the boat, but also rejecting seriousness in order to make life more entertaining when we need it. There is almost a medicinal or therapeutic aspect of comedy. In other words, we need comedy in order to survive, and that has been the belief for centuries, and I will finish this presentation off by referring to this at the end. I want you to think of how many prank videos you have seen recently on social media, whether it be YouTube or whether it be other social networks such as TikTok or Snapchat. There are millions of prank videos out there, all vying for our attention, and of course many people go viral, many people make a living from pranking, and many of you might have seen hundreds of these videos in a relatively short space of time. We might think that these prank videos are miles away from Shakespeare or Wilde or other comedic writers. However, they follow exactly the same formula, and that's what I want to show you now. To do this, I'm going to refer to this prank video, which I often show my students, because it sums up in a nutshell perfectly what comedy is all about. Some of you might have seen a prank like this, where an unsuspecting member of the public walks into a phone shop unaware that that shop is being secretly filmed. The member of the public is unaware, of course, that they're going to be the butt of the joke. In this prank video, a member of the public hands their phone over because it's broken, believing that the man behind the till is going to fix it for them, as one would expect from going into a phone shop. However, as soon as the phone has been handed over, the man begins to smash the phone up with a hammer, and we watch the member of the public standing aghast, watching their prized possession being smashed to bits. We also laugh at the reaction when the man hands the phone back. Clearly the phone is now very broken, and the man is making believe that the phone is much better. We laugh at the woman's reaction here, because she knows that what she has seen is completely unbelievable. However, to prevent this prank being seen as malicious or nasty, there's a happy ending, because the man says, "Don't worry, it's not your real phone," or even if it was her real phone, the woman gets a new iPhone for free for taking part in the prank. And you have the phrase "thank you so much," suggesting that despite the initial shock, she's happy that she walked in this shop on this day, despite being the butt of the joke. So it's a happy ever after, and comedies often have happy endings. So that's the modern prank video, but let's look at stag do's. Typical images that I found on Google earlier when I googled stag do. It's unusual to see men dressed as Wonder Woman in the high street. It's unusual to see men dressed in nothing but a yellow or a green singlet. And it's also unusual to see men dressed as the Smurfs in broad daylight. If we walk down the high street now, we would not expect to see a man tied using tape to a lamppost. So there's something temporary about this, something that makes this seem more acceptable, because we associate this with a temporary period of escapism and entertainment. And for ladies, we have hen do's, and you will often find the same thing here. It's unusual, for example, to see a group of women all dressed as devils in the high street. Women do also not go to see strippers every day, and it's also unusual and uncommon to see women carrying around in broad daylight in public inflated male penises. Something about this suggests that this is a temporary celebration, something that is not going to last forever. There's a party spirit here, a carnival spirit here, something that breaks away from normality or expected behaviours. To use a key phrase to describe this temporary break from normality is to use the term disequilibrium, and I often find this is very important for students to use when they're talking about comedy, because it shows that the student is aware of how comedy works, whether that be in a literary text written by Shakespeare, for example, or in terms of a modern prank video or hen or stag do. As you can see from the scales, to create a sense of disequilibrium is to rock the boat, and to create a sense of imbalance. So disequilibrium is synonymous with all of these terms. It's synonymous with the term imbalance, to deviate away from expected behaviours, to transgress and move away from normality, to transform, whether physically through disguise and clothing, or emotionally through personality and jokes. Disequilibrium means breaking away from normality for a temporary period of time for escapism, to create a disharmony, which is also entertaining, and to also relish in deception, deceit, and disguise. And comedy is often about revelling and relishing in that temporary break from expected behaviours. So whether it's a modern prank video, or a stag do, or a party, or a hen do, or even a literary text like a Shakespeare play or Oscar Wilde play, there is often going to be a temporary break from expected behaviours. Our characters are going to get engaged in things that they ordinarily should not be. And it's that disparity between what expected behaviours should be and what we actually end up seeing, which often is where the comedic material comes from. To use any of these terms in your essay would be very impressive, because it shows that you are aware that comedy is a construction, something that is an artifice, something that is created in order to create entertainment for a temporary period of time. So what do modern prank videos tell us about comedy, or even any sense of party? Well, comedy is often about pranking and jokes as an escapism from serious life. Whether it's a Shakespearean prank or a modern prank, it all is the same. It's making us laugh, rejecting normal behaviour and customs. Comedy is often about creating elaborate deceptions for entertainment. There's another video I'm referring to here in the picture of a woman who is pied in the face on an escalator in the middle of a shopping centre by a man dressed as a clown. Again, if we saw that, we might laugh at it, because we would not usually expect to see that. It's a prank in itself. But it's also a deception, because the woman believes that she's quite safe in this shopping centre. She did not expect to get a pie in the face in front of everybody else and feel humiliated. The farce and absurdity of the situation is comic because it conflicts with normal behaviour. So the woman, for example, seeing a pie in her face is not something we would see every day. So a disequilibrium is created. The woman who goes into the phone shop wanting her phone to be fixed is also being deceived, because when she walks into that phone shop, she did not realise that she was going to be the butt of the joke. And the way in which the man smashes her phone up also creates that deviation from expected behaviour, because you go into the phone shop to help, not to make things worse. We know more than the victim of the prank by watching the video. We feel superior because we know the woman going into the phone shop is going to be the one who's pranked. Same thing with the woman going down the escalator. Something that we fear as humans is public humiliation. Something that we dread is tripping over in front of people, for example, because we might be laughed at. However, we don't mind laughing at other people who follow the same suit. So despite not wanting to be humiliated ourselves, we're quite happy to laugh at others who follow the same path. We know that it's just a prank. By typing into YouTube prank video, we know that it's not real. We know that it's a construction to make us laugh. And we probably know that normality will be restored later on as well. There will be some sense of happy ending. But we still want to see the reactions of those pranked and see what happens. Some people obviously get very angry when they're pranked, which can also be highly entertaining to watch. As already said, we often see a happy ending. So you see smiles and laughter, and perhaps the person being pranked gets some money or a new phone for taking part in the prank. And there's a high degree of forgiveness, despite suffering a momentary period of humiliation. If this happy ending did not happen, we might find this prank to be cruel or malicious. But seeing the person who's pranked forgive the prankster makes us feel happier for them and more comfortable in watching it. As we have seen from some of the images from the Hindu, sometimes parties can get more sexualized, and comedy often has a closer relationship to nudity and sex than tragedy does. So comedy can often come from what's bawdy, what's innuendo, or what's also known as blue humour as well. Pranks are temporarily suspensions from reality for fun, and many of you might have heard of the term carnivalesque, which is again revelry in disorder and chaos, where rules are inverted. We know that carnivalesque things like parties are only momentary. We know that life will go back to normal eventually, but that doesn't mean we have to be serious all the time. So again, these pranks, hen do's, stag do's, can also be seen as elements of the carnivalesque as well. We also make time for comedy. Stag do's often have to be organised, don't they? They can sometimes be 3 to 4 days long. Gone are the days where it's just a night out. Sometimes men and women can go away for whole weekends now because they're making marriage as an excuse for merriment. So we need to schedule comedy into our lives in order to make use of it. We almost need to force ourselves to lighten up sometimes. So the final slide here is, why do we need comedy? So the word therapy, there's something therapeutic about comedy. It comes from a Greek word meaning healing. And even if you go back to 1592, when Shakespeare's play The Taming of the Shrew was written, there's a messenger in that play who says that laughter means that it does away with melancholy, and melancholy is the nurse of frenzy. So they thought actually that laughter makes you live longer. It's almost got a medicinal or medicine quality to it. Looking at recent headlines, the UK spends some 9.7 billion on home entertainment in 2021, and of course a lot of that entertainment will be comedy. It will be comedians. It will be things that we laugh at as a way to escape the seriousness of everyday life. Many of you might have heard of the therapy that is offered sometimes on NHS called laughter therapy, because laughing is designed to release endorphins that makes you feel better and counteract things like depression and blues. So we need comedy, and that's the reason why we keep going back to it on YouTube, on TikTok, on Snapchat, and looking at comic films as well. We need comedy, just like we need ibuprofen or paracetamol. We need it in our lives in order to really survive, in order to get through what can sometimes be quite serious times. So comedy is the same whether you look at it from a literary sense, from a writer, or whether you look at modern prank videos or modern parties. So I hope that's helped you see that comedy, whether it's literary or whether it's modern, always follows the same kind of formula. It's all about deviation away from normality, all about creating that sense of disequilibrium and enjoying that sense of rule breaking because you know it's just temporary, and at the end of the day, it's just a bit of fun. So I would encourage you to use any of those key terms in your contextualizations of comedy, whether it's for A-level or any other course. Thank you.